Hey, Rena M. How are you? I appreciate you checking in. I'm going to read the book, Burn Master's House Down. Did you listen to the other pages? I'm on page 55 right now. Um, Give me 1 minute. Let me grab my highlighter. Hey, Go Cree Cree. I appreciate you stopping in. Could you please share to Discord again and probably your page? Hold on a minute. Odds are coming. I appreciate you guys. But we are on page. It's really Rena. Oh, Go Cree Cree. Her name is Rena. YouTube messed up her name. Her name is Rena M. And YouTube messed up her name. That's what she's saying. Is the music too loud? We are on page 55. Um, Luke and Henry are about to run before Luke's mother was sick. So Luke's mother asked him to delete her using a tool, and he did cut her throat because she didn't want Master to do it. And Emily, I think her name is, she was pregnant for Master, and she drank castor oil to get rid of her baby. So now Henry and Luke, they're about to run from the plantation. His mother is free from pain. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. Her name is Ruby. Ruby and Josephine. Josephine is the little girl that's attached to Ruby's hip. She's 14, and Master's gonna use her. You know, use Josephine after Ruby. Ruby doesn't want to be a breeder for Master, so therefore she took the castor oil to mess up her inside for the rest of her life. Hey, Mike Love, I appreciate you stopping in. I really appreciate you. So here we go. I'm going to start at 54. Even though we just to recap, even though we on page 55, if y'all don't mind. Mike, I have a book for you. I promise you tonight I'm gonna read. Okay, here we go. Luke cried, his voice cracking with tears. I know you're hurting so bad. Is the music too loud, y'all? It seemed loud to me. I turned it down a little bit. Let me know if the music is okay, guys. Luke cried, his voice cracking tears. I could turn it down a bit. Okay. How about now, Cree? Is that okay, y'all? Luke cried, his voice cracking tears. I know you're hurting so bad. I just don't want you to go. I can't stand Mr. Ringling. I hate them all. No God in them. No God at all. When I look into their eyes, all I see is pure evil. You can turn it. Cree, let me know if the music is okay now. Miss Emily whispered, all the devil's power came from God himself. Luke kissed his mother on the forehead. Love you, Mama. Love you, Mama. Love you, the whole wide world, she murmured as she motioned to the blade. Okay, it's good now. Luke's tears flowed freely as he looked to Henry, who grabbed the blade. Grief bore down as Henry softly placed the handle in Luke's hand. Henry began to chant a prayer to guide the crossover. Luke locked eyes with Henry through tears. I chant so Miss Emily is not stuck in the in between. Luke gripped the blade as he took in his mother. Miss Emily's eyes met his with the serene acceptance. Her face was bathed in calm. Henry chanted louder as Luke's heart thundered. He drew in a breath, the blade tight in his hand, and with a clean motion, sliced across Miss Emily's throat. The skin parted to reveal a flood of maroon pouring forth as if a dam had given away. The flow was inevitable as freedom itself. The visceral release. There was a slight flinch, but no discomfort. Only a mystical relaxation. Her jaw went loose, cheeks softened like wax, brow smoothed of its storms, and widening into pools. In seconds, she looked younger, as if she were aging backwards. Luke could feel his mother's soul slip away, unraveling like a finished spell. Shaking uncontrollably, Luke let the blade fall from his hand, its edge now slippery with his mother's final moments. He sank down beside her, fixed on her form, with a kiss to her limp hand. Look, Luke covered her body with the crisp sheet he took from the big house. As he sat there, he could still feel her. Guiding him, urging him, pushing them both. Luke imagined the freedom that now waited for her, a freedom that eluded them all in life. He had set his mother free out of love. It was a love that only souls who experienced love could understand. Free No more pain. Luke and Henry stood in the shadows outside of Miss Emily's shack. Welcome, Melissa Marie. Please hit the like button and subscribe. I appreciate you. Luke wiped his tears with the back of his hand, trying to control his breath. It was time to move, time to try. With Henry by his side, he believed he could get it done. Still, his thoughts strayed to Ruby and Josephine in another world. Maybe he could come back for them, find a way to carry them to freedom too. But tonight, it was just the two of them. Henry pulled Luke into a light embrace, their hearts beating against each other. For a moment, they stood letting the connection ground between them. For But the shuffle of the footsteps broke the quiet, pulling them back into the presence. Henry stiffened first, his head snapped toward the sound. Luke turned slower, his hand instinctively hovering near the small knife tucked into his waistband. Relax, came a familiar voice. No danger here. From the darkness emerged Solomon, his limp more pronounced in the night, his eye patch darker against his skin. Y'all know who Solomon is. Solomon is the guy that tried to run um, with David, and Solomon got caught. The moonlight catching his one great eye. Solomon whispered, "You scared the hell out of us. What are you doing out here this late?" Luke said in a low voice. Solomon took a few steps closer. His eyes, he eyed their uneasy stances. What y'all doing out here is the real question. Luke held Solomon's steer just walking, he said, clearing our heads. Solomon huffed a quiet laugh. Y'all can try lying, but it ain't gonna work on me. He tapped his temple lightly. I know it. You running. Henry's mouth opened to protest, but Solomon raised a hand. Don't bother. I know the look. I had it too. Henry stepped forward. What about you? Why you roaming around Magnolia Road at night? Solomon glanced toward the fields. I walk when nobody looking at me. Just wandering in the night, he said. When the stairs ain't digging into my back, makes me feel normal, I guess. He turned back to them. This time of night, I ain't Solomon, the one who ran and got caught. I'm just a man with 2 feet on the ground. Solomon stepped closer. Y'all can do it, he said. You can get out of here. How'd it go wrong for you, Solomon? Henry asked. Ain't listen to what the land was telling me, he said, mulling all that led to his capture. Thought I was smarter than that. Stuck to the rivers. Excuse me, y'all. I'm just highlighting some stuff. Stuck to the rivers. Me here, but the patrols know them waters better than anyone. They was waiting there. Got into a spat with David and said the rivers was the strongest way to go. I went into the waters, he didn't. I got caught. He paused. Don't go near the rivers. Take the high ground, even if it takes longer. You see a tree with the broken branches leaning west. Follow it. The land is going to be rough, though, real rough. You got to push through. The rougher the land gets, the harder it is, the closer you get. Don't stop and keep the wind at your back. You can smell trouble that way. Solomon looked at them both. If I can't be free, somebody else ought to be. Maybe you come back for me one day. Thank you, Solomon, Luke said. Solomon smiled faintly, then lifted his hand as he placed it on Luke's shoulder. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication. Let your requests be made known to God. Philippians 4:6. They nodded firmly. Solomon stepped back. Y'all take care. I hope to never see you again. His limp carried him through the darkness, his figure vanishing into Magnolia Row. They slipped into the night, the heat of the day still clinging to their skin like a second layer. Their spirits were high. Solomon's advice had proved wise. Avoiding the rivers helped them dodge patrols. Hold on, y'all. Excuse me, guys. I appreciate your patience. How is the music? Is it okay? Maybe there's a delay. Could someone answer me? Is the music okay, guys? Okay, go Creek. Thank you. Even in darkness, the stars spread overhead like a map, promising deliverance. Every now and then, Luke would glance skyward, analyzing the stars. We are gonna do once, oh, excuse me, what are we gonna do once we get free? Luke asked, carefully placing one foot in front of the other on the rocky path. Henry took a moment before answering. Don't know, he admitted. Long as we ain't chained to nobody, that's all I can figure out for now. Luke nodded, a small smile pulled at him. Me? I haven't even been thinking about maybe acting in just plays. He paused with a hint of embarrassment. Junior used to make me read those old books of plays with him. That's how I first learned how to read. Plays? Henry echoed. Luke chuckled self-consciously. Yes, dear, Shakespeare. I didn't always know what the words meant, but I do my best. He lifted his chin, trying for a regal tone. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Henry blinked, then let out a sudden laughter. Luke grinned. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rena. I appreciate you. William Shakespeare, The Tempest, Stephen Oracle, editor. Act 4, Scene 1. Wide and nudged Henry. He smiled wide and nudged Henry's shoulder. That's the first time I heard you laugh. Henry shook his head. Don't go worrying. I might do it often, he teased. Then he exhaled. Thank you, Luke. They walked on in a companionable silence for a few minutes, picking up their way through the brambles and sharp rocks. Luke spoke up once again. What do you want to be, Henry, when we break free? Henry didn't take his eyes off the star-streaked sky. Never really thought on it. Don't even know what I like or what I am good at. Beyond surviving, he paused. All I do know, being around you, Luke, that makes me feel like maybe I can figure it out. Makes me the happiest I've ever been. Luke reached around and briefly gripped Henry's arm. For a fleeting moment, the punishing ground underfoot and the darkness pressing all around them seemed conquerable. The risk was worth it. The words felt prophetic now, with heavy meaning. We are such stuff as a dream, as dreams are made on. He almost wanted to laugh at the bitter irony of it all. So many dreams had never been dreamt. Billions of reveries of hope lost before they even began. They were traveling in search of a dream, yet living in a nightmare. Freedom had to be close. It felt like they traveled so far, but the climb became grueling. Each incline stealing their breath and sapping their strength. Rocks poked out in hidden places, slicing open their palms and soles, slowing them down. Tangles of thorns snatched at their clothes. Still they pressed on, buoyed by small victories. There are no howling dogs at their back, no torchlights cutting through the trees. They paused in a dark hollow to catch their breath. Luke managed a shaky grin. We put some good distance behind us. For just a few heartbeats, it felt like they might have truly gotten away. By the dust, by the time dusk turned to dawn, their paths and looming ridges began to look the same. Delirium set in, making every turn feel like a step backwards. Landmarks they could have sworn they passed hours ago re-emerged. Don't make no sense, Henry said, pausing to lean against the crooked pine. This ain't right. We just keep going, Luke insisted though. For the first time, uncertainty was in their eyes. We got to go. We just keep going, Luke insisted. Though for the first time, uncertainty was in their eyes. Weariness was in their bones. Their knapsacks were heavy. The farther they tugged, the more each step felt like a strike against their bodies. They pictured the bright fields beyond the enemy lines. But as the sun rays peeled back to the edges of night, the hope that had sustained them began to close. It started low, almost indisguisable from the wail of the wind through the trees. They prayed it was a hallucination, but it was the baying of the hounds. So suddenly that Luke froze mid-step, his heart hammering against his rib. Desperation shot in Henry's chest. They'd avoided the rivers, they'd taken the hard path through the hills. Surely they'd gained ground. Frantic barks and snarls drew closer. In what felt like an instant, the bloodhounds were upon them, fangs bared and snapping. Henchmen followed with shackles in their hands, their voices gruff commands. Luke and Henry fought with every ounce of strength, but the overwhelming numbers of their captors could not be beasted. Blows rained down, lashes, fists, and boots thudding into their body. Rusted iron tore into their wrists and ankles. Luke was thrown back to the nights he was chained to Junior's bed. Luke had seen the scene so many times, runaway bound to back of wagon, a collar biting into his neck, his hands tied so tightly that his wrists were raw. What he never imagined was that it be him, a rope fastened around his waist, tethered to the wagon, forcing him to stumble and drag. His feet in a bid to keep his pace. Hold on. Let's see. Each step was a battle. He collapsed repeatedly, but the wagon never slowed. Whether he was being dragged or struggling to walk, the movement was unceasing. Henry, by his side, was a picture of battered endurance. Blood stained his chest where he had fought back fiercely, his face a mass of swelling and bruises. They walked behind the wagon, felt like hours, but soon everything began to look familiar. The ocean of cotton fields appeared before them, making Henry remember his first time on Magnolia Row, not too long ago. His head was pounding, his heart shook. Henry could take a whipping, but he knew this time it would be much worse. He looked to Luke stumbling every few seconds and the torn shirt exposing his lashes, the wounds gorged with blood. They could see the big house. There was a crowd surrounding the front. He had never seen so many souls this close to the house, even more than when Solomon was captured. Ruby stood at the edge of the crowd. Lips moved silently as her prayers fell into the air, begging any God who might be listening to spare her beautiful boys. Josephine wrapped herself around Ruby's leg. Her small face peeked out. Solomon stood nearby, hands shoved into his pockets to keep them from shaking. His one good eye twitched. Solomon didn't need to see this to know what was coming. He lived it just weeks ago. Mr. Ringland, Mistress Kitty, and Junior stood on the front of the steps. The closer they got, Luke glared in Junior's face. He saw the rawest of evil, even worse than Mr. Ringland. His cheeks were flushed. His small piggish eyes glinted with a cruelty that oozed from his pores. There was a long blade in Junior's hand. Luke knew the blade. The blade was that freed his mother. Luke, Henry mumbled, I'm sorry. So sorry. Mr. Ringland, Mistress Kitty, and Junior were on the step of the wide porch, standing motionless, eyeballing them both. Luke uncontrollably screamed. Henry began to sob. Luke, please, please, Luke. Luke tried to breathe. Henry, they are going to cut us open. Henry and Luke kneeled in the dirt before Mr. Ringland, Miss Kitty, and Junior. The souls surrounded them. Luke was unrecognizable. with his bruised face and chest bitten by dogs. There was more blood than exposed skin on Henry as he breathed in and out, fearlessly staring directly at Mr. Ringling. If he was chained and tied, Mr. Ringling would be a dead man. Saddest thing I've ever seen, Mr. Ringling said. Miss Kitty nodded in agreement. You ain't ever treated two slaves better, and they ran away on you. You don't know the money you cost, Mr. Ringling continued. The folks I had to pay to get you back. Known you since a baby, Luke. Took care of your mama, and you do this to Junior. Ain't never been more disappointed in a slave than you. He paused. Your mama, Emily, throat was wide open. Either you or that African did that to your mama. Luke inside steamed. I threw Emily in the thorn bushes, Mr. Ringling said. Wow, that was his mother. He just threw her into the thorn bushes. That's crazy work, y'all. Crazy work. I don't know, but that's some sinister stuff. And him thinking Luke had it good when his son had Luke tied to a bed doing egregious sex acts on him. That was okay. They had it good. They had it better than the people in the fields. I threw Emily in the thorn bushes. Sure did. She's still out there, not too far away. Got the animals gnawing on her black body. You think on that, boy. You think real hard on that. Ooh, that's a lot. Her daddy, Junior, said in the deepest voice. Anyone heard him speak? Passing him the blade. You take this. I don't want to get my hands dirty. Mr. Ringling grabbed the blade from Junior and walked down the steps. Lowered his head, bracing himself for Mr. Ringling. Luke lowered his head, bracing himself for Mr. Ringling's next move. Whipping's too good for you. Need stronger if you're gonna learn. And everybody. He let out his voice, turning into a familiar roar. Need to be reminded that you need to know your place. Mr. Ringling seized Luke by the head, forcing him down into the dirt. He smashed Luke's face into the ground with one hand, while the other gripped the blade. He pulled his ear and began sawing mercilessly. That's crazy work. Mr. Ringling's violence would not be rushed. Henry broke, tears streaking through the grime on his face. Little Josephine turned into Ruby's dress, her tiny fist clutching the fabric. Solomon stood with his head low, his eye twitching, his left foot squirming. Ruby stared with prayer, not the meek kind. Her prayer wasn't a surrender, but a stammering rage. Luke could feel the flesh being torn from his head, his screams piercing as Mr. Ringling worked. Each grind was an assault on his senses, the sound of tearing bone and skin reverberating in his skull. Blood erupted from the wound, pouring into his ear canal. Mr. Ringling held half of Luke's ear in his hand, shaking it to the sky, showing it to the horrified souls. Excuse me. Luke rolled on the ground, screaming from pain. Ruby, get that boy up before I have him a dead field hand. Ruby was already with her cloth, water, honey, and salt. She only hoped her boys would survive as she tried to patch up a delirious Luke who lay with his face in the dirt, shaking and sobbing. Excuse me, y'all. You four, hold that boy down, Mr. Ringland shouted, pointing at Henry. Spread open his arms and legs. The four souls obeyed as they forced Henry to the dirt, his limbs spread wide and vulnerable. Henry didn't resist. He lay still, once his tattered pants now torn away, leaving him exposed. His legs were spread so wide it seemed they might snap from strain. Mr. Ringland stood over him as he brandished the long, sharp blade. You know what it means to be whipped. Ain't gonna scare you. His voice dipped with satisfaction. From the dirt, Luke turned his face towards Henry, his eyes filled with anguish. Cut him off, Junior's voice demanded from the porch. Daddy, cut him off, Mrs. Kitty giggled. Do it like the hogs. Montgomery, Mr. Ringland's hands gripped and tugged Henry's testicle in a savage, immediate motion. The blade descended. Henry's most primal scream cracked from the back of his throat. As the violence sliced through him, the world spiraled into a dizzy blur. His mind overwhelmed. He stared at the bluest sky, which vanished into an oppressive white. Luke and Henry were barely clinging to life. The souls who witnessed their suffering heard them shocking words from Mr. Ringland. That Luke and Henry had killed Miss Emily. This malicious gossip spread it, further tormenting them as they lay in the very shack where Miss Emily was set free. Another form of punishment for Mr. Ringland, or so he thought. Somehow, in that cursed place, they felt shielded. Miss Emily was free, but she was not gone. What you say? What you say? Go Cree Cree. She lived in between their short breaths, in the way the halls hum when their strength waned. They prayed to her, called her name like a hymn, summoned the warrior spirit to flood their bodies. Miss Emily, who had damned the shell that failed her. Mike, yeah, this is crazy work. It I'm not gonna lie, it has me triggered. He was just Mr. Ringland is just mean. And this is Gooch. This is a place called Goochland, Virginia. And the name of the plantation, I don't know if you came in when I first started. The name of the plantation is Magnolia Row. Miss Emily, who damned the shell that failed her, now became the vessel for their survival. Yeah, I thought about that too when I first read Goochland. But yeah, this got to get better. I honestly believe that they were going to make it. But then I don't know if Solomon told them that to get them caught, because it seemed like the water, they can't pick up your scent in the water. Y'all know what I'm saying? With the scent of old blood in their nose, they swore they heard a whisper, live. The process of healing was torment. Solomon, his own wounds still raw, check on Luke and Henry daily. He would slip into the shack during the quietest hours and bring small scraps of food he'd hidden from his own meager rations. Other times, his presence was enough to remind them they weren't entirely abandoned. His hand would tarry briefly on their shoulders before he left, a gesture of solidarity. He held no judgment against them for Miss Emily. He understood freeing often. He dreamed freeing himself the same way. Ruby came every morning without fail, bringing fresh clothes, clean sheets, water, and food. With Josephine at her side, she cleaned their wounds with salt and honey. All supplies were stolen from the Ringlands' pantry. Hold still, she said as she dabbed. This'll burn a bit, but it's all we got. The salt water bit into their flesh, and the honey stung as it sealed the wound. But neither Luke or Henry complained. They couldn't afford to. Solomon stood at the doorway, his face grave as he whispered to Ruby. Don't know if Henry gonna make it, he said one evening. Henry's wounds were severe, his body's fevered and raw. But when Henry looked, but excuse me, when Ruby looked into Henry's eyes, he saw no trace of doubt. Henry could feel their worry, but there was resolution in his expression. Don't waste your tears for me, he said to them both. Henry fought believing Miss Emily's spirit, believing in where he came from. At night, the fields were silent. He forced himself to stand, his body trembling as he leaned against Luke. We gotta move, he told Luke. Wounds heal better with blood flow. Luke, with the patch covering his ear and the stiffness in his step, didn't question. They shuffled through the darkened fields, the moonlight tracing their battered silhouettes. Ain't our birthdays coming round in a few weeks? Henry said as they leaned into each other in the night. Luke scoffed softly, turning towards him. We got the same birthday, August 21st. Henry eyes kept Henry kept his eyes on the ground. Not too long ago, Luke had given him a birthday, handed him something he never thought to claim for himself. August 21st, he repeated in his head, letting it settle. 19, Luke said, as Henry pushed to make wider strides. Henry didn't know if 19 felt right, but it didn't matter. What did was the way Luke said it. So sure, like it was his to give. As if he could share something as simple and precious as a date with no strings attached. It was a strange thing, Henry thought, to feel ownership over time, over a day. Luke gave, we ought to celebrate, Henry said. Luke gave a dry chuckle that turned into a wince. Celebrate what? We barely living. Celebrate what's coming. We gonna make it, and when we do, he paused, facing and wrapping his arms around Luke, resting his head on his shoulder. We celebrate with fire, Henry said in his ear. Luke cupped the back of Henry's neck. Fire it is. Beneath their exterior, a ferocity smoldered. Rebellion was in their blood. Luke carried it in his veins, the fire of his father. Henry had ripped him from his homeland that had nurtured him free, only to find himself in a nation that caged his body. For the weeks they were healing in the shack, they made their plans bidding their time. They knew the risk, but ironically, isolation became their ally, granting them the time and the scarcity to strategize when no one was listening. When Luke and Henry were forced back into the fields, their body was still aching. They worked through the pain, their movements robotic, but their hands and minds were sharp with purpose. The stories of others who fought back never stopped circling their plans. Retribution was inevitable. Justice was fated. Capitulation was unthinkable. Through their healings, Luke and Henry plotted. Oh, well, y'all, it's about to get good, finally. They would strike again despite the first failed attempt. They refused to let defeat turn into despair. The curtain call was to coincide with the day of Luke's birth, the day they had given to Henry. The Ringlands were determined to break them physically and mentally, to keep them subdued for their labor. But healing was more than a mere physical recovery. Y'all think they're gonna do it or not? Anybody there? Keep going. Nobody talking back. Everybody's doing something else while listening. Alrighty. Shortly after midnight on August 21st, Luke and Henry moved across the land towards the Ringland's great house. Luke knew. I was saying, y'all think they're gonna do it? Y'all think they're gonna burn the big house down? Every plank, every loose latch knew the house weaknesses better than the Ringlands themselves. I do too, cause Henry's a whole nother breed. Henry is a whole nother breed. They probably need to burn them up while they in the house. Let me know if the music got too loud. They were always they were always in a warped window, a door left unbarred, small oversights from the privileged who never thought to fear what crept in the dark. Ruby's cabin Ruby's cabin sat close to the back door. They couldn't risk waking her. Instead, they slipped toward the kitchen entrance. A gentle push was all it took. The door swung open without a sound, as if the house itself were inviting them in. The grand cold walls of the big house were eerily quiet, except for the sporadic creak of the old timbers. The smell of kerosene and old grease clung to the walls. A burnt odor. They moved through the halls, the walls aglow with the shifting light of oil lamps. The flames cast prancing shadows, making the portraits hanging on the walls come alive in a nightmarish ballet. The paintings were unsettling, each face rendered in goulash grays and pale blues. Their movements were inconspicuous, with Luke carrying a broadaxe. The walls tightened around them as they tiptoed up the stairs to Junior's room. The epicenter of the first door, the door half open, creaked with a haunting groan as they nudged inside. Y'all should know they was gonna get Junior first for what he did to Luke. Inside the room was bathed in the unnatural light of the kerosene lamp on the bedside table shining over Junior's mess. Oh yeah, Junior gonna burn because he keep his room dirty. A dirty house burn faster than anything. Creaking with a haunting groan as they nudged it inside. Inside the room was bathed in the unnatural light of the kerosene lamp. On the bedside table shining over Junior's mess, clothes across the floor, an empty chamber pot reeking in the corner, and at the foot of the bed, iron chains laying in a heap. Amid the chaos stood a vanity Henry had built. On the surface rested a single unmoving thing, a Bible, its leather cover obviously untouched. There is no peace, said my God, to the wicked. A sleeping Junior, deep in his dream, was unaware that judgment was ready to strike. Luke and Henry stood over Junior's bed, his naked body sprawled out, his fat belly spilled like a bloated udder. Junior's pink, fleshy nipples jutted out. Mm. Isaiah 57:21. That's where that verse come from. There's no peace, saith my God, to the wicked. Henry's growing attached with a phantom pain. He recalled how Junior demanded that he be mutilated. He glanced at Luke, barely recognizable, his face a patchwork of healing scars, a permanent reminder of torment. His missing ear would never grow back. Kill him, Henry said in a venomous whisper. Luke raised the blade as high as he could, his mind a symphony of images. The kerosene lamp allowed him to see his target. He could still hear Junior's voice as he was inside of him. The memories of being choked, penetrated, and defiled were his reoccurring nightmares. Wow. The chains at the end of the bed, all of it shot into his muscles, spread in his veins, and settled right in his soul. With all his strength he could muster, Luke brought the blade down. The blade cleaved into Junior's abdominal flesh, tearing, Lord have mercy, in a symphony. Henry watched with glee while Junior's eyes broke open. They realized his terror and let him yelp for a few seconds. They wanted to hear his pain. Henry smashed the pillow in his face. Junior tried to fight, his chubby arm swinging like a pig being slaughtered. Luke hacked again, the blood splattering on their bodies and decorating the walls. Henry laughed and Luke shredded Junior's legs, each primal scream vibrating through the pillow. Junior's manliness was exposed. Covering Junior's face with the pillow, Henry grabbed his penis, squeezing and twisting, reminding him of some pink snake in his foul shack. from the night from that first night on Magnolia Row. Wow. I thought they were gonna burn Junior up, but wow. Move that pillow, Luke demanded as Henry yanked it away. Junior's shrill, inhumane wail filled the room. Swiftly, Luke swung the blade into his mouth. Junior's face shattered like a porcelain doll, eyes impossibly wide. A waterfall of blood and tissue ruined his cheeks. They stepped away, admiring their work. Soaked in blood, Junior lay in disemboweled pieces, a rightful mess. Luke felt a rush of liberation, the scent of his oppressor's blood filling him up. He met Henry's gaze, both of them grinning. They had killed like the devil's spawn. What y'all think? I might sound sinister, but I feel like Junior deserved every bit of it. A high-pitched scream their birthday night. Mistress Kitty stood in the doorway, her white skin shining in the dim light. Henry grabbed the axe from Luke. She tried to flee, but fear rooted her where she stood. Kitty's knees knocked together, nails scratching the door frame. She whimpered as Henry's axe buried itself on her shoulder. Hey, pinball player, how are you? Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you. Bones snapped like dry twigs. The next blow struck her neck. Blood sprang in a scarlet crescent. Kitty collapsed in the hallway, clutching her throat. The roles reversed. Now she was defensive. Let me see her laugh at that. Let's see her laugh at that. Henry followed her, chopping away at Kitty like she was firewood. Luke watched, seeing Kitty's beastly soul driven out of her body. She deserved to die. His only regret was not killing her sooner. He walked to Luke smiling, proud and strong, biceps bulging, chest heaving, half his face splattered with blood. He reached for Luke, but a gunshot rang out. Henry's body jerked, smirk curling from his shoulder. I'm sorry, y'all. The axe clattered the floor. Another shot. Henry's hand uncontrollably flew up, blood shooting as he fell to his knees, collapsing atop Kitty's mutilated body. Standing a few feet away was Mr. Ringland with a smoking shotgun in his hand. Luke thought it was unreal, the scene before him, a pre-motion of blood and violence rather than reality unfolding. The metallic click of Ringland's rifle began reloaded, echoed like a death knell. As if jolted from a trance, Luke seized the blade and charged forward. Mr. Ringland's attempt to ready his shotgun were clumsy, frantic. "Stay back, boy," he shouted. But fear robbed his voice of authority. Luke swung the axe with fury, slicing into Mr. Ringland's left shin. The impact sent Mr. Ringland sprawling to the floor as he fell onto his back. Luke was upon him in an instant, driven by a fire that transcended his own strength. He raised the axe high and brought it down, severing Mr. Ringland's arm with a crunch. The hate that had been bottled up for so long poured out of him in a torrent. Wow, y'all. I didn't think they was going to get away with killing Mr. Ringland, being he had a shotgun. Mm. He had dreamed of his moment, Imagine it in countless ways. And now he was striking not just flesh and bone, but every embodiment of his torment. Y'all know good and well Luke blacked out. What y'all think? I think he blacked out on Mr. Ringling. That's crazy work. Oh, hey, Mr. President, I forgot playing ball players, Mr. President. But yeah, I think they black out and thought back to everything. I didn't think they would get this far. I was thinking maybe the overseers that the overseers that were in the field would have heard everything, But I'm sure they heard the gunshots. He had dreamed of this moment, imagined it in countless ways. And now he was not striking flesh and bone, but the very embodiment of his torment. Luke's hands were dripping with blood, determined to obliterate the face that had haunted his nightmares. The face, that face once a symbol of his suffering. The man who had stolen his mother and his dignity was now his vengeance. But the eyes, Luke could still see those wicked orbs as they bulged freakishly wide from the pain. Under the light of the kerosene, Montgomery Ringland's eyes glistened like wet marbles, the veins within them a map of all the souls he had killed, raped, and tortured. The eyes pleaded, yet still carried a torch of arrogance, as even now he believed he was omnipotent. He thought of Solomon, thought of the pain in that lone eye hidden behind that crude patch. Solomon wasn't there to see this, to feel the reckoning he deserved, but Luke would deliver it for him. For Solomon, his mother, for his father, for every soul who had been broken under Ringlands on the Goochland Magnolia Row. Luke dropped in the axe and fell to his knees, straddling Mr. Ringland. Luke's thumbs hovered over the master's goggled eyes for just a moment. Then he pressed the taut membrane, his thumb sinking deeper. The wet squelch of his eyeballs ruptured and squirted. Y'all, the man was already deleted. And whew, a spray of clear fluid mixed with blood burst splattering Luke's hand and Montgomery Ringland's cheek. He let out a cry, bleeding like a frightened sheep. Luke didn't stop. Oh, I thought Ringland was dead. I thought he was deleted. Father, as the tissue gave away. Father, as the tissue gave away. His thumb sank in. Another sickening pop, followed by a gush of fluid that trickled down Mr. Ringland's temples like tears. He twisted the inside sockets. Hold on, y'all. He let out a cry, bleating like a frightened sheep. Luke didn't stop. Farther, as the tissue gave way, his thumb sank. Another sickening pop, followed by a gush of fluid that trickled down Mr. Ringland's temple like tears. He twisted with he twisted nothing recognizable. Lord have mercy. Even if he survived by grace of Satan, he would never see a soul again. Luke pulled his hands back. They were caked with blood and viscera. The devil, he said. He longed for the overthrow. He longed to overthrow, was at his mercy, and tonight the master would be vanquished. Mr. Ringland, I thought the man was already deleted. Mr. Ringland's body convulsed in a final desperate, spasmodic dance of death. Luke's senses were skewed. The sound cut through, and he shot up. He turned, and there on the unforgiving floor of the hallway lay Henry, sprawled over the cracked remains of Kitty. Luke staggered forward. He pried Henry away from Kitty, laying him easily on the floor, and knelt beside his friend. The light of oil lamp showed a hole in his chest. Luke, Henry's voice was still strong. Luke's hands were tremulous as he reached out, gripping Henry's wounded body, the heat of the blood melting into Luke's skin. Hold on, Henry. Please hold on. Let me get you outside. He scooped Henry's in his arms, blood gushing out of the hole as he rushed downstairs, kicking open the door to the front porch. Put me down, Henry croaked, coughing up blood. We can make it. Ruby can patch you up, Luke said through tears. Down, Luke. Gotta talk. Luke reluctantly laid him on the front porch. Henry, please. Luke clutched him. You can fight. You got it in you. I loved you, Luke. You be a king. Henry's eyes softened as his tone almost carried back to his native tongue. His grip on the back of Luke's neck was strong. Set Magnolia Road on fire, leaving nothing. Burn it down like how my village burned. Burn it down like Haiti. Don't let nobody stop you. Burn down Master's house. Burn it down, Luke. Henry, Luke screamed. Don't you leave me now. I'm begging you. Henry's final breath broke free as Luke felt his. Begging you, Henry's. And Luke felt his soul drifting away. It's just crazy. Henry's body went limp, his hand slipping from Luke's neck as the final words hung in the air like smoke. His command settled on Luke's shoulder. Henry's eyes, once fierce and burning with the fire of rebellion, rested, wide and peaceful, a cry torn from Luke's depths, a cry so extreme it had ripped his voice. He held Henry close, feeling heaviness of his body pressed against his own. Luke's mind raced, torn by the urgency of Henry's call for fire. Their memories charged through his mind. First meeting Henry outside of the barn, the kindness he showed his mother, their time at the riverbank, long talks about his homeland, and their moments of freedom in the mountains. Gonna burn it all, Luke vowed. Carefully, he let go of Henry and kissed him on his bloody lips. A scream made Luke jolt up to see Josephine, the first sound that came from her mouth. She stood near Ruby as just as stunned. She pulled Josephine closer to her side, trying to quiet the little girl's cries. Luke stood. Henry's gone, he rasped. And this place is going with him. I'm gonna burn Magnolia Road down, Ruby. Ruby took in Henry. Her knees weakened, and for a moment she teetered, but no tears. No more tears. Instead, an inflamed anger. She united the tattered bandana from her head. She untied. I say united, untied, staring at it for a moment before tossing it to the ground. Then we burn it together, she said, smoothing down her hair. Ain't letting you do this alone. Luke hesitated. Ruby, I said together. She cut him off, stepping closer to him. We both been in this hell. We both gotta end it. Luke locked into Ruby. They weren't bound by blood. Blood meant nothing there. They were bound by shame and mortal coil. The same rotted right hope that kept them alive. Luke turned toward the front door, the two of them stepping into Master's house, side by side. From behind them came the sounds of footsteps. Luke turned to see Josephine in the doorway, her unblinking eyes fixed on them. Josephine, no, Luke said. You don't need to see this. No, she do, Ruby said firmly. She needs to see what it means to make something, to take something back, what it means to end something that should have never been. Ruby walked over to Josephine and crouched down. You stay close to me, you hear? You need to see this, so you know what we fought for, what you'll fight for someday. Josephine nodded. Ruby took her hand and led her back to Luke, who let out a breath. We start upstairs, Luke said. Luke ran for a matchbox and two kerosene lamps from the kitchen. They bolted up the steps they climbed 1,000 times before, weary, sick, and with stabs of hunger, always at the ringland's command. This time their feet carried no obedience. In the hallway, the sight of the mutilated bodies of Montgomery Ringland and Kitty Ringland lying just feet apart. Ruby gave a pause but pressed on. Luke stood beside Mr. Ringland's corpse and emptied one of the kerosene lamps across the floor. He struck a match and dropped it. A small flame danced, making its way to Junior's room. Ruby, Ruby stepped forward as she grabbed the other kerosene lamp from Luke's hand. This one is mine, she said. Ruby hurled the lamp against the wall. The glass shattered, igniting instantly. Josephine flinched at the explosion of fire, her tiny hands flying up to cover her ears. Luke stepped back, his eyes on the growing fire. Ruby watched the fire climb, its lights on, Mr. Ringland's face contorting as the heat reached his skin. Kitty's body began to sizzle. Ruby looked to Josephine and nodded. Watch, baby, her voice above the crackling flames. Burn, Ruby spat. Burn for every scar, every scream, every soul you stole. Blue flames crackled into the portraits of the pale gray people who were always watching. Their senile smiles and stares melted from the walls. Luke wondered who they tortured and how they passed on to their kin. Bright colors lit, crept into corners, and soon engulfed Junior's room. The house, Junior's room, was his deepest hell. Since he was a child, the years of torment began to disintegrate. Ruby took a deep breath, cherishing the acrid smell of burning wood and flesh filling her lungs. Josephine let go of Ruby's dress, stepping closer to the fire. Her small hands hung at her sides, her lips parted. They gonna remember us. Ruby nodded slowly. That's right, Josephine, Luke added. Ruby slowly nodded. Luke, Ruby, and Josephine descended the stairs, coolly walking out of the big house for their final exit. They returned to Henry's shell on the porch. Luke knelt beside his love. Henry was home, freed, unencumbered by the Judas of his life. As the heat of the master's house began to rise, souls gathered in front. Luke lifted Henry's body, cradling it in his arms. Flames of every color lit within the big house, breaking through the windows, writhing like tormented souls finally released. Luke's mind spun. The whippings, the stolen children, and the faces of the lost. He thought of his mother, her worn hands and tired eyes. He reflected on his father, a warrior who he couldn't remember, but knew he would be proud. Magnolia Row would end here. Consumed and cleansed, he walked down the porch steps, Ruby and Josephine by his side, with Henry in his arms, both drenched in blood. He pressed his lips into Henry's cheek. The souls watched in silence, watched him mourn, thinking of the loves they had missed. Lovers lost in real time, lovers snatched from them quietly in the night. They could feel his loss. They were with him. Their quiet was surrender to his pain. Luke stared at his brothers and sisters with Solomon at the center. The Ringlings have gone to hell, and the devils finally got his due. Luke said, they killed Henry, just like they killed my mama. He paused. I know y'all might think of me, but my mama wanted to free her soul. I freed her. He drew in the scent of the flames and let the fire's rhythm play in his ears. I am setting more souls free tonight. Magnolia Rose going to hell, burning every inch to the ground. Stand with me or get gone while you can. The faces of the soul reflected the inferno consuming the master's house. Some stared unblinkingly, their expression compounded with the awe and shock, mouths hung open, not in fear, but in wonderment, as the flames climbed higher, devouring the pillars, the roof, the very walls that had held their suffering. The house, once a monument to supremacy, stood ablaze like a colossal effigy, its proud symmetry warped in heat, windows bursting outward with crack. The fire was a soul coming alive, roaring and snarling as it tore through the boards and shadowed the glasses that once surveyed the fields with unyielding authority. The white exterior darkened the crumbled, the flame darkened and crumbled. I'm sorry, y'all. The flame stripping away the facade of permanence. For years, the house had beat against their backs, its towering columns like demons watching over their pain. The souls watch as the master's house collapses inwards, its perfect corners and smooth surfaces giving way. They could feel it, the unraveling. The house was no longer a temple, but a scorched tomb. On that August 21st, a wall of fire enveloped Magnolia Row whole. Every row of cotton, the gin house, every shack, the barn, everything the souls didn't take engulfed by fire. There was a jubilee in destroying this place of terror. Terror. Children laughed. Men and women danced and sang. The fire cleansed their spirit. And before sunrise, every soul was on their way somewhere else. Many were captured, many escaped, but the sun rose over the smoldering ruins as the ashes marked rebirth. Word of Magnolia Row spread like the fire that captivated it. Their news, the news arrived on horseback in ink-stained papers, trembling in the hand of those who read them. White women clutched their pearls and pulled their children closer, their eyes jumping toward the souls. Ministers fell to their knees in churches praying to their version of Christ. Men who once spoke with arrogance of kings now stood in doorways, rifles shaking in their grip. Planters locked their doors in broad daylight. One newspaper headline screamed, "The fire of rebellion. No master shall sleep soundly again." It wasn't just on paper that haunted them. It was justice in flesh. The enslavers from Goochland, Virginia, to the deepest part of the South shuddered. The reckoning had begun, and for the first time in their lives, they considered vengeance was not theirs. They were sleeping with the enemy. The once unshakable foundation of their power now felt fragile. Souls were activated, not just on paper, but in flesh. How long could this institution survive? Its days were numbered. The Lord's judgment hovered over them as if they were binding its time to deliver its reparation. America would be dragged, bloodied, and gasping into a hard-won glory. All right, that's chapter 1. Next we have chapter 2, which is page 76. I'm gonna go and start making some shorts. Thank y'all. But I gotta have this read. I'm gonna try to have this read by the end of the month. We halfway through. Is that halfway through? No, we 1/3 of the way through. But I'm gonna try to have this done by March 1st. This book is it's kind of grueling and triggering. I'll be glad when we get to the better parts. But I'm done for the day. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Go Cree, Rena M, and whoever's left. I want to make some shorts. Take my time and make some shorts. Thank y'all and have a wonderful day.